Ahlan wa again, everyone. So this part will be about the root and pattern file. This is the most important file that we went over in 2AA3, and this is very important in your career in learning Arabic in general. I need this to be very well rooted, and it's very important so that you can understand the logic of the language, this file. So let me start again. I know some of you who just registered were not with me in 2AA3. So please pay very close attention to this file right here. And again, if you have any questions after that, you can ask me, you can contact me by email, and we can schedule an appointment to go over everything. Okay, just waiting for the PowerPoint to respond. It's not responding. So think of the root as the liquid that you put in any container. So whether you put water, for instance, if you put water, for instance, in any of these shapes, regardless of the exterior shape, at the end of the day, it will remain water. And the pattern, think of it as the external shape that you put the liquid in. So the root is like the liquid. So all words sharing the same root, they will be sharing the same essence, the same core, the same liquid at the end of the day. And all words sharing the same pattern, they'll have the same external shape. So they'll look all the same regardless of the root. So they'll look all the same on the outside. So to put that into perspective, so the root, basically, to understand it, it's the three-letter basic building block of any Arabic word. This root gives the word its core meaning, and all root letters are consonants, and consonants include the two semivowels waw and ya. Don't forget, semivowels are consonants. So the root is the three-letter basic building block of any Arabic word. It gives the word its core meaning again, and all root letters are consonants. All words sharing the same root will share a common core meaning or a common primary meaning. And if you recall from the 2AA3, Arabic is a 3D language, which means that words in Arabic have a primary layer of meaning or a primary meaning, which is indicated by the root, and it may have secondary layer or layers of meaning, which are indicated by the pattern. And the secondary layers of meaning, they may indicate intensity, repetition, the place of the action, the tool of the action, the doer of the action, the object of the action. The action itself is determined by the root, and the pattern will determine the intensity, as I said, of the action, repetition of the action, place of the action, tool of the action, the doer of the action, the object of the action, layers of description of the action, etc. All of these secondary layers of meaning are determined by the pattern, but the root is determining the action itself. So don't forget, the action itself is determined by the root. The additional layers of meaning, like that have to do with any of these things right here, are determined by the pattern. Sometimes the semantic relationship between words sharing a common meaning may not be very obvious, but it's always there. So for example, when I was teaching at University of Calgary, I was teaching Arabic courses as usual, and I was teaching a course as well called Muslim Civilizations. So the word for civilization is hadara in Arabic. It's this word right here. And so one of the students who was in both classes of mine, the one of the Arabic classes, as well as the Muslim civilizations class, was asking me, so when I'm taking the attendance or talking about someone who came, I was saying hadara, so hadara fulan, someone came. And at the same time, hadara is civilization. So she asked me, which was a brilliant question, how comes these two words are sharing the same root even though they have nothing in common? And the thing is they do have something in common actually. And they do have the same root, and it's all about when someone hadara, it doesn't mean that he just came in classical Arabic, at least. In classical Arabic, by the way, no two words are completely synonymous like in modern standard Arabic. In modern standard Arabic, you can use multiple words with the same meaning, but in classical Arabic, no two words are completely synonymous, because that would have seemed redundant. And classical Arabic, as I mentioned to many of you before, is the most logical form of Arabic. So hadara is not like the equivalent of ata, and both are not the equivalent of ja'a. So hadara, it's not when someone just comes, it's when someone comes and not just being physically present there, but being influential. So hadara, when there is hadara or civilization in one part, it's not just being that these people are just physically present there, or their culture is just one of the cultures there, but it's actually influential, and it's affecting the surrounding areas. So that's why it's called hadara. Also, an example, for example, in classical Arabic, when we're talking about jalasa versus qa'ada, which are both used in modern day to indicate to sit. However, in modern standard Arabic, they were not the same. Again, both indicated to sit, yes, but qa'ada, it's when someone was standing and then he sat down, it's qa'ada. But if he was lying down and then he sat, so it's jalasa. So again, in Arabic, you will find small differences between words that are today seen as synonyms. Anyway, the number of Arabic roots is theoretically huge. It's 28 times 28 times 28, because we have 28 consonants, and in each position of the three positions, you have 28 possibilities. So that's 22,000 possibilities. But the ones that are actually used are around 15,000. And the number of roots that are actually used vary with time. So some roots may have been used in the past and they are no longer used. Some roots were not used and they are now used, and in the future they may not be used. So from each root you can derive hundreds of words. So you have 15,000 roots. From each one you can derive hundreds of words, whether nouns or adjectives. Whether nouns or verbs. Adjectives are under the umbrella of nouns when we're talking about the word level, i.e. morphologically. The origin of the meaning of the roots is almost always sensory or material in the case of Arabic and other Semitic languages. So, for example, when we're talking about concepts that are not material, like adl, for instance, adl means justice, or sa'a, which means an hour. Both are some things that you can touch. They are not material things. However, the root for them is indeed material. So, for instance, the adl, it was originally called what was originally called adl in Arabic was the thing that they were putting on top of the camel when during long travels. So in order for the camel to be able to take long journeys, the weight of the things on both sides of the camel and had to be very well balanced. So the thing that was put on top of the camel, it had to balance both sides very well, so that this will preserve the energy of the camel and will be a kind of a mercy to the animal as well. So that it had to be very well balanced. So as I said, in order for the camels to be able to take long journeys. So the thing that was put on top of the camel was called adl, and then after that it acquired an extra meaning, which is for something that's not material, but the original thing was something material, and then it acquired the meaning of justice. Same for the word sa'a, which means an hour. The root sin ya ayn, as you know, the alif cannot be in the root of the word because it's a vowel letter, so it will be replaced with either a waw or a ya, depending on the present tense of the verb. So anyway, the root of ساعة is sin ياء عين, as you can see right here. So this root here, the root sin ياء عين, it has to do with water being absorbed in the sand. So as you know, Arabs, they value water. Arabs live in desert. Water is something very, very important to them. It's something very precious. They don't have a lot of it. When they have it, they try their best to keep it and not waste it. So when the water is wasted in the sand, first of all, it's a gradual process. The sand absorbs water gradually. Second, water is precious. Once it's lost in the desert, once it's lost in the sand, it's lost forever. And third, so second, it's precious, and third, once lost, it's lost forever. So it's a gradual process. It's a precious thing, and once lost, it's lost forever. The same exactly applies for time. So the use of this root to indicate time was actually a genius use of the root. And so just like water, time is very precious. Time is lost gradually, and finally, once lost, it's lost forever. You can never retrieve it. You can never get it back. So let's move on to the next slide. So, for instance, for the root kaf ta ba right here. This root kaf ta ba, I'm sure you all know it. This root has to do with, you can pause and say your answer and then get back. Yes, it has to do with writing. From this root, you can derive up to 10 verb forms. We didn't talk about verb forms yet. We'll talk about verb forms this semester. So verb forms, it's just there is one verb form, which is the main verb form, which will be kataba, just the main form, which is to write. And then you will have forms 2 to 10 will add extra layers of meaning to form 1. So you can derive up to 10 verb forms from the root kaf ta ba. All of these words will be still sharing a common meaning, a common primary meaning, which will be writing. So here are some examples with the root of words sharing the root kaf ta ba conjugated with huwa in the past tense. So kataba, which is form 1, kattaba form 2, kataba form, which is form 3 of the verb, aktaba form 4, takataba, that's form 6, and istaktaba, that's form 10. We'll talk about verb forms again this semester. As I said, this is just a quick idea about verb forms. And also, in addition to verbs, so each of these verb forms can be conjugated in 34 ways with different pronouns and in 3 tenses in Arabic: past, present, and imperative. Only 6 pronouns in the imperative, the 6 pronouns of the second person you. And you can also derive from this same root a huge number of nouns, including adjectives and adverbs. As you recall, as I mentioned, adjectives and adverbs are under the general umbrella of nouns. So by putting the root in different patterns, you can get different meanings, and all of these right here are nouns. So for instance, kitaba is writing, katib is writer or author. You can, by the way, you can pause here and read them yourself to practice reading as well. Kitaba is the action of writing, it's the ing form. Katib is writer or author. Kitab is book. Maktub is something that is written and it was used to indicate letter. Maktab is literally the place of writing, and it's currently used to indicate desk or office. Maktaba is library, and it's literally, again, the place or time of writing. So maktaba is the feminine of maktab. Maktab is desk or office. Maktaba is library. But both this is the feminine of that one, because both literally indicate the place or time of writing. And for those who recall from the 2AA3, maktab and maktaba are called the place of writing. Maktab, it's understood why maktab, office or desk, is called the place of writing. Maktaba, on the other hand, you may ask yourself, why is it called the place of writing and not the place of reading? You can pause and try to guess and get back to hear the answer. So the reason for that is that at the very first library that was built in the Arab world was built in Baghdad at the peak of the golden age of the Abbasid Empire at the time of Harun al-Rashid. It was called the House of Wisdom. When this library was built, it started in a peak. Like actually, it didn't start as a small library as is usually the case, because they were getting books from everywhere in the world of that time, from India, Persia, Greece, and many parts of many countries that had old civilizations. So and Iraq itself, where Baghdad is, where that Baghdad is the current capital of it, it was actually a country itself with a very ancient civilization, and this is where actually the world started writing. This is the place that taught the world how to write in the first place. Anyway, so from all of these countries and the Levantine area, Egypt, and many civilizations, they were getting books from there, but more than anywhere, it was from India, Persia, and Greece, especially philosophy from Greece. Anyway, so they had like a huge amount of books in this library, and they were also doing translation of the most important textbooks. And also at that time, during the time of Harun al-Rashid, and then later at the time of his son al-Ma'mun, everyone who was authoring a book that was considered of value in any field was taking the weight of his book in gold. And actually, books, if you're familiar with that, they weren't like so light as today, because the papers they were writing on, they were very thick papers. And so anyway, so it was like a golden era for knowledge and for science. And at that time as well, this library was called the House of Wisdom, the or Bayt al-Hikmah. So this so when they wanted to publish a book, and as you know, there were no machines to do that at that time, so they were actually doing it by tens of people gathering in the same place in the library itself, and hundreds and sometimes thousands of people, and the tens of people were dictating, and the hundreds or sometimes thousands of people were writing copies of the textbook at the same time, so that there will be many copies of these books. So that's why it was called the place of writing and not the place of reading. That's why it's called maktaba. So kutab is the old Arabic word for school. Kattaba, that's again an old Arabic word. It was indicating typewriter or typing machine. Mukataba, here's an interesting one. It means asking for one's freedom. Again, this may seem weird, and how does that related to the root? So again, if you go, it may seem weird, but the logic is always there if you go back in time. So if you go back in time, when at the time when there was slavery, if a slave wanted to ask for their freedom, and many of them usually weren't literate, so they went to someone to exchange letters with their masters in order to ask for their freedom. And this process, mukataba, is the process, literally is the process of exchanging written material or exchanging letters. So that's why the process of mukataba, later it acquired the meaning of asking for one's freedom, but today it's not used for that anymore. So again, all of these words right here, whether these verbs or these nouns, they're all sharing the same root, which is kataba, and all will have to do with writing. Next, let's talk about the pattern. So the pattern, just don't forget, any word consists of a root and a pattern in Arabic. Through a process called derivation or ishtiqaq. The pattern is the container, as you recall in this picture right here. So the pattern is the container in which you put the root, so think of the root again as the liquid, think of the pattern as the container. So the pattern is the container in which the root is put. It consists of the short vowels and affixes like prefixes, suffixes, and circumfixes, added to the root. So prefixes are affixes that are put at the beginning of the word before the root. Suffixes are affixes that are put after the root. Circumfixes are put around, like before and after. And you have inner fixes as well, which are put inside. So basically, it consists of the affixes that are added to the root. So all words sharing a common pattern will share some common secondary layers of meaning depending on that pattern that is used. For example, patterns may indicate the doer of the action, the object of the action, the time of the action, the place of the action, the tool of the action, etc. The action itself, that's determined by the root. So again, the pattern can indicate the doer, the object, the time, the place, the tool of the action. It can as well indicate other layers of meaning, like layers of description, intensity, etc. But the action itself is determined by the root. The patterns are sort of weighed according to a morphological scale. The morphological scale is the process of replacing the three letters of the root with these three letters right here, fa, ain, lam. So it's, again, the morphological scale is the process of replacing the three letters of the root with fa, ain, lam. Then we add the short vowels and affixes as they are. The root fa, ain, lam itself is related to the action of doing. So the root fa, ain, lam has to do with doing. That's why you'll find that most grammatical terms are derived from this root, such as fi'al. In grammar, it means verb, and literally it means action or doing. Fa'il, that's the subject grammatically, and literally it means the doer. Maf'ul bihi, that's grammatically the object, and literally it means the done to or done with, like the thing that the action was done with, or the person that the action was done to. Okay, so again, the pattern is the container in which the root is put. The root is the liquid that is put inside that container, and the pattern consists of the short vowels and affixes that are added to the root. Again, all words sharing, just review for the root, all words sharing a common root will share. You can pause and complete it. Yes, all words sharing a common root will share a common primary meaning or a common core meaning. And all words sharing a common pattern will share, you can pause and try to complete it. Yes, all words sharing a common pattern will share common secondary layers of meaning. So again, patterns may indicate the doer, the doer of the action, the object of the action, the time of the action, the place of the action, the tool of the action, the intensity of the action, the repetition of the action, etc. But the action itself is determined by the root. So again, the action itself is determined by the root. And again, the patterns are weighed according to morphological scale by replacing the three letters of the root with the letters fa, ayin, lam. And the fa, ayin, lam root has to do with doing. So all grammatical terms, as I said, will share this root, like fi'al, grammatically verb, literally action, fa'il, grammatically subject, literally doer, maf'ul bihi, grammatically object, literally the done to or done with. So let's take some examples of patterns. So the first pattern that we'll deal with today, and we'll just go over three patterns in this file. We won't go over any more patterns. So the first pattern is the pattern fa'il. The pattern fa'il indicates the doer or the subject of the action. So again, the pattern فاعل indicates the doer or the subject of the action. Okay, so let's see some examples. So we have the root kaf ta ba. This root has to do with, yes, it's right, writing. The pattern fa'il indicates the doer of the action, that's it. So if you'd like to combine the root kaf ta ba with the pattern fa'il, here is what this will look like. So, and here's how you will do it. First of all, you will replace the first letter of the root that we will call R1 with the fa. You will replace the ta, which is the second letter of the root, with the ayn. You will replace the third letter of the root, which we'll call, so we'll call the first letter of the root to make it easier R1. We'll call the second letter of the root to make it easier R2. And we'll call the third letter of the root to make it easier R3. So you will replace R1 with the fa. You will replace R2 with the ayn. You will replace R3 with the lam. That's when you're weighing that's when you would like to put this root here in this pattern. So again, you will replace the fa with the first letter of the root, R1. You will replace the ayn with the second letter of the root, which is R2. You will replace the lam with the third letter of the root, which is R3. This is the opposite of the process of the morphological weighing that we talked about last time. So by replacing the root with fa, ayn, lam, here we're doing the opposite. We're replacing the fa, ayn, and lam with the three letters of the root. So the fa, we replaced it with the kaf. The ayn, we replaced it with the ta, that's this, and the lam, the lam here, we replaced it with the ba. That's the first step. Replace the fa, ayn, and lam with R1, R2, and R3 respectively. And then second step, you add everything else as it is. So the alif will go exactly where it was. The kasra here below the ayn will go here in the same spot below the second letter of the root. Okay. Let's take another example. Let's take the root qaf, ra, hamza. This root has to do with, you can pause. Yes, this root has to do with reading. So qaf, ra, hamza, any word sharing this root will have to do with reading. So here so in order to put this root here in this pattern, okay, so the root again is qaf, ra, hamza, and this root has to do with reading. In order to put it in this pattern right here, the pattern fa'il, this is what you will be doing. So you will replace the fa here with the first letter of the root, which is the qaf, which is R1. You will replace the ayn with the second letter of the root, which is the ra, or R2. You will replace the lam with the third letter of the root, or R3, which is the hamza, and then you will add everything else as it is. So again, the fa will be replaced with the qaf, the ayn will be replaced with the ra, and the lam will be replaced with the hamza, and then everything, that's the first step. The second step, everything else will stay as it is. So it will be qari. So you will have the alif exactly where it is, the kasra here where it is, and everything else stays as it is. So it will be qari. Why is the hamza written on a ya and not written by itself? You can, it's just as, if you recall from 2AA3, it will depend on the vowel on top of it, or on the vowel on top of the hamza, or the vowel before it. So since the vowel before it is a kasra, so the hamza will be written on the vowel letter that has the same sound as the kasra, which is the ya. And when the hamza is written on top of the ya, the two dots of the ya are removed. So the hamza is usually written on the vowel letter that has the same sound as the short vowel on it, or the short vowel before it, in case there is no short vowel on it. So if there is if it's a fatha on the hamza or before it, the hamza will be written usually on an alif. If there is a dhamma on the hamza or before it, the hamza will be written usually on a waw. And if there is a kasra below the hamza or before it, the hamza will be written usually on a ya letter, and the two dots of the ya will be removed like that. Next root is dal ra sin. This root has to do with, if you recall, studying or learning. Yes. Okay. So this root right here. So this root right here, dal ra sin, has to do with learning or studying. If we put it in the pattern fa'il, let's do the same steps. You will replace the fa with the first letter of the root. You will replace the ayn with the second letter of the root. You will replace the lam with the third letter of the root. So the fa will be replaced by dal, the ayn will be replaced by ra, the lam will be replaced by sin, and then everything else stays as it is, the alif and the kasra. So it will be daris. So daris is the one who learns or the one who studies. So it will be the learner or the studier, as if you're saying the studier. This word doesn't exist. So let's go now to the fourth root, which is ayn lam mim. This root has to do with knowledge. That's right. So the root ayn lam mim has to do with knowledge. So if you put this, if you like to put this root to combine it with this pattern. So again, the steps, first step, you will replace the fa with the first letter of the root. You will replace the ayn right here with the second letter of the root, and you will replace the lam right here with the third letter of the root. So you will replace the fa with the ayn with the lam, and the lam with the meme. So you will be getting, and then that's the first step. Second step, you add the alif and the kasra as they are. So it will be alim. And alim is someone who knows, i.e. knower between quotation marks, or scientist. Then shin kaf ra. This root has to do with, that's right, thanking. So let's again do the same steps. Replace the fa with R1, which is the shin. Replace the ayn with R2, which is the kaf. Replace the lam right here with R3, which is the ra. And then add everything else as it is, the alif and the kasra. So it will be shakir. So shakir means the ones who thanks, or the thanker. Okay, so we can practice this one. Wow, ayn dal, this root has to do with promising. So if you like to put it in the pattern fa'il, the end result will be, can anyone guess? Let's do the steps. Replace the fa with the first letter of the root, which is the waw. Replace the ayn with the second letter of the root, which is ayn still. Replace the lam with the third letter of the root, which is dal. That's the first step. Second step, add the alif and the kasra as they are. So it will be wa'id. Okay, that will be the answer. Okay, so this is about the pattern fa'il. And again, the pattern fa'il indicates the doer of the action. Which action? This is determined by the root. Okay, let's go to another pattern, which is the pattern maf'ul. And the pattern maf'ul indicates the object of the action. So the pattern maf'ul indicates the object of the action. Okay. So unlike the pattern fa'il, so we had the pattern fa'il that indicates the doer of the action. The pattern maf'ul, on the other hand, indicates the object of the action, i.e. the person or object that the action was done to or done with. So the person that the action was done to, or the object that the action was done with. So let's go over these right here. So let's go over the first root again, which is kaf ta ba. This root has to do with writing. That's correct. So if we put it in the pattern maf'ul, let's see what we'll do. We'll replace the fa here with the first letter of the root, or R1, which is the kaf. We'll replace the ayn right here with the second letter of the root, which is the ta. We'll replace the lam right here with the third letter of the root, which is the ba. So again, we'll replace the fa with R1, which is kaf. We'll replace the ayn with R2, which is the ta. We'll replace the lam with R3, which is the ba. And then we'll add everything else as it is. So we will add this meme right here, the prefix meme with the fatha. We'll add the sukun where it was, and we'll add the waw here before the last letter. So it will be maktub. And just to make sure, just to make sure that you did it correctly, whether with fa'il or with maf'ul, with any pattern, you will just see that it has the same number of syllables and that they are rhyming. So fa'il, just make sure here they're all rhyming and they all have the same number of syllables and everything. Fa'il, katib, qari, daris, alim, shakir, wa'id. Here, maf'ul, maktub. So that's right. So no problem with that one. Let's go to the second root, qaf ra hamza. Again, qaf ra hamza, this root has to do with reading. So let's put it in the pattern maf'ul. So we'll put it by replacing the fa with the first letter of the root, or R1, which is the qaf. We'll replace the ayn with the second letter of the root, or R2, which is the ra. We'll replace the lam right here with the third letter of the root, or R3, which is the hamza. And then you will, that's the first step. Second step, add everything else as it is. So you will add the meme with the fatha, the sukun right here, and the waw before the last letter. So it will be maqru, maqru. And this means the thing that is read. So maktub, it means the thing that is written, and maqru is referring to the thing that is read. So this is read and not read. Okay, next, del ra sin. Again, this root has to do with studying. To put it in the pattern maf'ul, we'll do the same steps. Replace the fa with R1, which is the del. Replace the ayn with R2, the second letter of the root, which is the ra. Replace the lam with R3, the third letter of the root, which is the sin. And then that's the first step again. Second step, add everything else as it is, the meme, the fatha, the sukun, and the waw, so it will be madrus, and this refers to the thing that is studied. Number 4, ayn lam mim. This root again has to do with knowledge. So let's put it in the pattern maf'ul. So we'll replace the fa with the first letter of the root, which is the ayn. We'll replace the ayn with the second letter of the root, which is the lam. We'll replace the lam with the third letter of the root, which is the mim. And then everything else is added as it is. So it will be ma'lum, and ma'lum refers to something that is known. So maktub refers to something that is, that is written. Maqru refers to something that is read. Madrus refers to something that is studied or learned. Ma'lum refers to something that is known. And same steps will follow to put the shin kaf ra root, which has to do with thanking, in the pattern maf'ul. So again, we'll replace the fa here with the first letter of the root, which is the shin. We'll replace the ayn with the second letter of the root, which is the kaf. We'll replace the lam with the third letter of the root, which is the ra. And then everything else, the meme, the fatha, the sukun, the waw, will be added as they are. And the end result will be mashkur. The end result, again, will be mashkur. And this is referring to the person who is thanked. So mashkur refers to the person who is thanked. And finally, the jim, ra, ha, right here, jim, ra, ha. This root has to do with hurting, whether hurting physically or hurting emotionally, just like in English. Both can work. So let's put it in the pattern maf'ul. You can just pause here and then see the answer. So the answer is yes, you will replace the fa right here with the first letter of the root, which is the jim. You will replace the ayn with the second letter of the root, which is the ra. you will replace the lam with the third letter of the root, which is the ha, and then you will add everything else as it is, and the answer will be, that's right, majruh. Okay, so majruh, someone who is hurt. Okay, someone who is hurt. Again, it can refer to either being hurt emotionally or being hurt physically. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So the next one here is the pattern maf'al. That's the, so again, just before we move on to the pattern maf'al, so again, the pattern fa'al indicates the doer of the action. The pattern maf'ul indicates the object of the action, i.e. the person that the action was done to, or the object that the action was done with. The pattern maf'al indicates the place or time. So again, the pattern maf'al indicates the place or time of the action. So again, it indicates the place or time of the action. So let's go to the first root, kaf ta ba. Let's put it in the pattern maf'al. So again, what are the steps that we'll be doing? Okay, pause and say the steps and then get back to me. So the first step, yes, replace the fa with the first letter of the root, or R1, which is the kaf. Replace the ayn with the second letter of the root, R2, which is the ta. Replace the lam with the third letter of the root, R3, which is the ba. And then add everything else as it is. You will add the mim, you will add the fatha, you will add the sukun on the first letter of the root, you will add the fatha on the second letter of the root. So the end result will be maktab and maktaba. Okay, maktab if it's masculine, maktaba if it's feminine. Any one, by the way, of these words you can still put it in the feminine. That's just like any word in Arabic, just like any noun in Arabic, you can put it in the feminine. Same for all of these. You can just add the ta marbuta to put them in the feminine. So maktab is the masculine. If you'd like to put it in the feminine, it's maktaba. Maktab today refers to office or desk. Maktaba refers to library. And do you recall, everyone, why is the library the place of writing and not the place of reading? Yes, if you are listening to the beginning, again, let's go back to the time when this word was coined, at the time of the House of Wisdom. Okay, it's why it was where books were being written. Okay, so let's go back to the second root, which is qaf ra hamza. Again, this root has to do with reading. That's right. Let's put it in the pattern maf'al. First step is pause and say it and then get back to me. Yes, replace the fa with the first letter of the root, which is the qaf. Replace the ayn with the second letter of the root, which is the ra. Replace the lam with the third letter of the root, which is the hamza, and then add everything else as it is. So it will be maqra without the ta marbuta here at the end. And if you'd like to make it feminine, you will say maqra'a. So maqra'a will be the place of reading. And as I told you in classical Arabic, whether a word will be masculine or feminine, it will depend. It will have a logic for it. So the word for sun, which is shams in Arabic, will be feminine because it is giving life. Same for the word ard or earth or land. It will be feminine as well because it's giving life as well. Same for maqra'a. Maqra'a, which is the time or place of reading, and it was used to indicate school in the old times. So that's the place of knowledge. It's the place giving knowledge, and knowledge is life. So for Arabs, again, there's a logic for that. So knowledge is life, actually, or more important than life. So by giving knowledge, you're actually giving life. So that's why the word maqra'ah is used in the feminine. So you'll find all of these. Maktaba is the classical usage of it. Maktab is a new usage. So all of the feminine words in classical Arabic, all of these words in classical Arabic, whether maktabah, the place of writing, maqra'ah, the place of reading, madrasa, the place of studying or learning, you'll find them all in the feminine because they are all giving knowledge, i.e., they are all giving life. So let's go to the next one. So maktaba will be the place of writing or the time of writing. It can be used as well to indicate the time of writing. Makra'a will be the place or time of reading. Madrasa will be the place or time of studying. So let's go over this one. Dal ra sin, let's put it in the pattern maf'al. You will replace as usual the fa with the first letter of the root, the dal, the ayn with the second letter of the root, the ra, the lam with the third letter of the root, the sin, and then you will add everything else as it is, the mim, the fatha, the sukun, the fatha. So it will be madras, and to put it in the feminine, you add the ta marbuta at the end, so it will be madrasa, and that's the word for school. Next is Ain Lam Mim. Ain Lam Mim is the root that has to do with, that's right, knowledge. So to put it in the pattern maf'al, replace the fa with the first letter of the root, which is the ayn. Replace the ayn with the second letter of the root, which is the lam. Replace the lam with the third letter of the root, which is the mim. And then add everything else as it is, the mim, the fatha, the sukun, the fatha. So it will be ma'lam, okay? And next one, ta, ayn, mim, this root has to do with eating. So this root again has to do with eating. So if we put it in the pattern maf'al, it will be, again, replace the fa with the first letter of the root, which is the ta. Replace the ayn with the second letter of the root, which is ayn still. Replace the lam with the third letter of the root, which is mim. And then you will add everything else as it is, the mim, the fatha, the sukun, the fatha. So it will be mat'am. And mat'am is, sorry, and mat'am is, again, the place of eating, literally, i.e. restaurant. Okay, let's go on to our last example here. You will do this on yourself. The root shin ra ba has to do with drinking. So the place of drinking will be, let's put this root in this pattern. Replace the fa with shin, the ayn with ra, the lam with ba, and then add everything else as it is. Okay, you can pause and then check your answer. The answer will be mashrab, that's right, and that's the place of drinking. So these are the only three patterns that we'll go over in this file here. The pattern fa'il, which indicates the doer or the subject of the action. The pattern maf'ul, which indicates the object of the action. And finally, the pattern maf'al, which indicates the place or time of the action. So let's now get some activities right here. And here I'd like you to do this on your own. Okay, you can pause and do all of them. So here I am giving you the pattern. So all of these words, شارب, عامل, عارف, قارئ, فالق, all of these words right here are following the pattern فاعل. So you can stop here and try to do them on your own and get back to me, okay? So let's get back now. So sharib is the pattern فاعل. I'm asking you about the root, okay? So let's see, the root for this will be, the root will be shin ra ba. Amil, this is the pattern. So how can you know that? Again, you will, so sharib is fa'il, that's the pattern. So the fa has the same spot as the first letter of the root. So the first letter of the root will be the shin. The ayn has the spot of the second letter of the root. So the second letter of the root will be the ra. The lam has the spot of the third letter of the root. So the third letter of the root will be the ba. Okay, so it will be sharib. Okay, amil will be, okay, that's right, ayn, okay, ayn, mim, lam, that's right. And then arif, let's see if you get it, it will be ayn, ra, fa, that's correct. Qari, if you got it, will be qaf, ra, hamza. and فالق will be fa, lam, qaf. So شارب means anyone? The drinker. عامل عامل, the root عين ميم لام has to do with doing. So عامل will be the doer. عارف, it has to do with knowing. So عارف will be the knower, the one who knows. قارئ will be the reader, and فالق, you didn't get this root, so it's the splitter anyway. That's the literal translation of it. Let's now move to the pattern مفعول. So I'd like you to do this drill again on your own. So all of these words, منقول, مفعول, مبسوط, منشور, مشهور, all of them are following the pattern مفعول. So I'd like you to give me the root for all of these. Again, how you will do that, you will see, okay, you will just do the opposite of the process that we were doing earlier. So the fa right here will be the spot of the first letter of the root. The ayn right here will be the spot of the second letter of the root. And the lam right here will be the spot of the third letter of the root. Okay, so you can do that and you can pause, do all of them and get back to me. So this will be, let's see, nun, qaf, lam, that's it. مفعول is following the pattern مفعول, and it's actually the same word, so it's the same root. If you recall, all of the grammatical patterns are having this root here, the root fa ayin lam. So the root here is the same as the fa ayin lam. That's the root. مبسوط is ba sin ta. ممتاز. منشور is نون سي منشور is نون شين راء, and مشهور is شين هاء راء. ممتاز. So منقول, it means something that is transported or that is moved. مفعول is something that is done. مبسوط is something that is flattened, and it can apply to a person who's happy as well, because Arabs refer to happy as with the flat mouth. So manshur is something that is published, or it has other indications as well. Mashhur is someone who is famous, someone who is well known. Okay, so all of them will refer to the object of the action, and all of the pattern fa'il right here refers to the doer of the. So this is the doer of the action, and these right here are the object of the action. Okay, let's do now the reverse. So here is the root for all of these words. They share the same root, and I'd like you to weigh each word morphologically. So all of these are sharing the root kaf, ta, ba. I'd like you to weigh each one of them morphologically. So kataba, okay, let's see, okay, how we, let me help you how you will do it, and I'm sure most of you already can know how to do it. Just as usual, replace the first letter of the root, which is the kaf, with the fa. Replace the second letter of the root, which is the ta, with ayn, and replace the third letter of the root, which is the ba, with lam, and then you will add everything else as it is. So it will be fa'ala. So first step again, replace the kaf, which is the first letter of the root, with the fa. Replace the second and replace the ta, which is the second letter of the root, which is with the ayn, and replace the ba, which is the third letter of the root, with the lam, and then you will add everything else as it is, including the three. So it will be basically the three fathas. Okay, you will pause here and do all of them, and you will come back and check your answers. So yaktubu. So yaktubu, let's replace, again, the root is kaf, ta, ba. So we'll replace the first letter of the root, which is the kaf, with fa. We'll replace the second letter of the root, which is the ta, with the letter ayn. We'll replace the third letter of the root, which is the ba, with the letter lam. And then we'll add everything else as it is. So it will be يفعل. So you will add the ya, the fatha, the sukun, the dhamma, and the dhamma. It will be يفعل. Okay, same for the third one. replace the kaf with the first letter of, we replace the first letter of the root, which is the kaf, with the fa. Replace the ta, which is the second letter of the root, with the ayn. Replace the ba, which is the third letter of the root, with the lam, and then add everything else as it is. So you'll add the kasra and the alif, so this will be fi'al, so kitab, fi'al. Next one, maktaba, again replace the kaf with the first, which is the first letter of the root, with the fa. Replace the ta, which is the second letter of the root, with the ayn. Replace the ba with the third, which is the third letter of the root, with lam, and then everything else will stay as it is. So the answer will be maf'ala. So the mim and the fatha and the sukun and the fatha and the fatha and the ta marbuta will all stay as they are. So it will be maf'ala. Next, in kataba. So in kataba, let's replace the kaf with the fa, the ta with the ayn, the ba with the lam. Everything else stays as it is. The alif, the noon, and all of the short vowels. So in kataba will be in fa'ala. So, and you can test yourself to see whether they are rhyming and whether they have the same number of syllables and everything. So let's go and do this test right here. كتب فعل. That's fine. يكتب يفعل. كتاب فعال. مكتبة مفعلة. إن كتب إن فعل. Okay, next let's move to كتبتما. So again, we'll replace the first letter of the root, which is the kaf, with fa. We'll replace the ta, which is the second letter of the root, with ayn. We'll replace the ba, which is the third letter of the root, with lam, and then everything else stays as it is. So كتبتما will be فعلتما. That's right. تكتبنا. So again, replace the kaf, which is R1, with the fa. Replace the ta, which is R2, with the ayn. Replace the ba, which is R3, with the lam, and then everything else stays as it is. The ta at the beginning and the fatha, the sukun, the dhamma, the sukun, and the noon with the fatha, they all stay as they are. So تكتبنا, تفعلنا. كاتب, okay, that's an easy one. Again, replace the R1, which is the kaf, with the fa. Replace the ta, which is R2, with the ayn. Replace the ba, which is R3, with the lam, and everything else stays as it is. So katib fa'il. Next, kuttab. Okay, you can guess it. Kuttab fu'al. Okay, that's right. Kuttab fu'al. Istaktaba. Again, the only letters that will be replaced with fa, ayn, lam are these last three. Okay, the kaf, ta, and ba will be replaced with the fa, ayn, lam respectively. Everything else will stay as it is, including the short vowels. So istaktaba, that's istaf'ala. ممتاز. Let's test. كتبتما فعلتما. تكتبن تفعلن. كاتب فاعل. كتاب فعال. استكتب استفعل. ممتاز. Okay, let's move on to an interesting part. Why do I say that Arabic is a 3D language? So let me address this. Let me some of you already heard me say that in class. Some of you didn't. So let me say what do I mean again? So again, let me just go over this slide here. So Arabic is a 3D language because again it consists of two components that are combined together through a process called derivation in order to form new words. So basically, we'll have a word. Any word will have two components, which is a root and a pattern. The root will be indicating the core meaning of the word, like that has to do with the action that this word is about, whether it's an action or something else. Okay, and then we'll have the pattern, which will indicate, again, secondary layers of meaning, including intensity, repetition, the doer of the action, the object of the action, the place of the action, the tool of the action, the layers of description of the action, etc. So, but again, the action itself is determined by the root, but the secondary, so the core meaning, which has to do with the action itself, is determined by the root. The secondary layers of meaning will be determined by the pattern. That's right. Okay, so back to our question right here. So why do I say that Arabic is a 3D language? Let me give you a classic example. So let me ask you the easy question first, and I'm sure many of you in class will know it. What is the verse that Muslims read at the beginning of every surah, which means chapter of the Quran? So what's the answer for that? It's Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Okay, so that's okay. So it's here. It is. So it's Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, which is probably the one verse that you will find more calligraphy of it than any other verse. So these are some of the ways you can write this verse here in calligraphy. I'm a fan of calligraphy, by the way. So here it's Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So it consists of 4 words: Bism, and then Allah, and then Ar-Rahman, and then Ar-Rahim. So this was the easy question. What's the verse that Muslims start every surah with? It's Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. That's the easy part. Now, let me ask you the tough question. How can we translate it? Let's translate the easy part first. So Bism, it consists of 2 parts, Bi plus Ism. So Bi means, okay, where is it? So Bi means in or with, that's Bi. And then Ism means name, okay, it's, yeah, and the is dropped. So Bism, in the name. So Bi is in or with, and then Ism, the name. It's these 2 together are forming an idafa structure. So Ism and then Allah, it means the name of God. Allah is the Arabic word for God, and it's not, by the way, the name. It's not it's not the Islamic name for God. It's the Arabic name for God. Like in the Arabic Bible, for instance, it's still the word Allah that is used to indicate God. So Allah is the Arabic word for God. Bi, again, in or with, Ism, name, Allah, God. So Bismillah together, it's in or with, Ism, the name, and then Allah, of God. Of is dropped and the is dropped. So Bismillah together, it means in the name of God. And if you can see in this part, when the word Allah is preceded by a kasra, it's not pronounced as Allah, which is the default way of pronouncing it. It's pronounced as Illah. So it will be pronounced as Bismillah. So Bismillah, in the name of God. Now, this is the easy part to translate. Let's now move to the hard part. And let me ask you first, for those of you who have read any Quranic translation, how will you find these 2 adjectives translated? Okay, you can pause if you like to mention an answer. So the answer is, you'll find it very, very differently translated. So in some translations, you will find it translated as Ar-Rahman, the merciful, Ar-Rahim, the compassionate. In other translations, you'll find it translated as Ar-Rahman, the compassionate, Ar-Rahim, the merciful. In still other translations, you'll find one of them, Ar-Rahman, translated as the owner of mercy, Ar-Rahim, translated as the giver of mercy. So you will find basically many, many translations for these 2 adjectives, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. So why is that? The answer is simply because the 2 things in English cannot be translated into one word, because both will just indicate the merciful if they are translated into one word. That's the primary or core meaning of both of them. But there are secondary layers of description for both of them. So Ar-Rahman is, so Ar-Rahman is the merciful. Ar-Rahim, in one word of English, is the merciful as well. Because English in one word cannot differentiate between Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. On the other hand, Arabic can differentiate between the two. So in Arabic, Ar-Rahman, it has the primary meaning of the merciful. Ar-Rahim, it has still the primary meaning of the merciful, but they are not the same in Arabic. As I said, both have secondary layers of meaning that will differentiate them from each other. So let's go to Ar-Rahman first. What's the root? I'm sure you all know what's the root for this one. It's the root Ra, Ha, Mim. Ar-Rahim, what's the root? It's Ra, Ha, Mim still. So Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, they both share the same root, so they both share a common primary meaning, which has to do with mercy. Now let's talk about the pattern. So Rahman, let's forget about the alif lam, and let's forget about the alif lam here without the definite article. Rahman is the pattern fa'lan. So you will replace the ra with the first letter of the root, which is the fa. You replace the ra, which is the first letter of the root, with the fa. You will replace the ha, which is the second letter of the root, with the ayn. You will replace the mim with the third letter of the root, which is the lam. And then there is a short alif here. This is just a way of writing, but it's still an alif. It's a regular alif. So let's put it as a regular alif right here. And then the noon will stay as it is, and everything else stays as it is. So it will be fa'lan. Rahim, you can do this on your own. So Rahim, you will replace the ra with the first letter, which is the first letter of the root. You will replace it with fa. The ha, which is the second letter of the root, you will replace it with ayn. The mim, which is the third letter of the root, we will replace it with lam, and you will add everything else as it is. So Rahim will be fa'il. Again, there is a shadda here and a shadda here, not because of the letter itself. The shadda is because this lam here is silent, because it's lam shamsiyya. There is a solar letter or harf shamsi. That's why the lam will be silent and the ra will be double. Anyway, it's not our main focus right here. But so the thing is, the word Rahman, the adjective Rahman, is following the pattern fa'alan. The adjective Rahim is following the pattern fa'il. Okay? So again, the adjective Rahman is following the pattern fa'alan. The adjective Rahim is following the pattern fa'il. Okay? So how does this affect the semantics of the two words? Like, how does that indicate the meaning of each? So let's go over this. So let's go with Rahim first. Rahim is the easy one. So I'll go over Rahim first. Okay, so here is Rahim. Rahim is following the pattern Fa'il again. Okay, so Rahim is the pattern Fa'il. Okay, and the pattern Fa'il is an adjective, and it, so okay. What's wrong with this fat right here? Oh, okay, anyway. Okay, so the meaning of the Rahim is following the pattern Fa'il. Fa'il as an adjective, it has one main semantic indication that I'll go over right here, which is to be in a state or to be described by a feature. that is not likely to change soon or is not likely to change ever. So again, the pattern fa'il indicates being in a state or being described by a feature that will not change soon or will not change ever. So Ar-Rahim here in the verse Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim as an adjective describing God is has the accurate meaning of the one with, you can guess it right now, the one with the everlasting mercy. That's basically it. The merciful with the everlasting mercy. So again, the word Rahim again is following the pattern Fa'il. The pattern Fa'il indicates the one possessing a feature or the one who is in a state that is not likely or that will not change soon, or in this case will not change ever. So Rahim, Ar-Rahim means the merciful with the everlasting mercy. Let's now go to the second pattern, the pattern Fa'lan. Okay, the pattern Fa'lan has a number of actually semantic indications. So the pattern Fa'lan, again, it has a number of semantic indications that I'll go over in a second. So the pattern Fa'lan as an adjective, it can be indicating one or more of the following semantic indications that can fit depending on the root and the context. So the first is to be filled with the feature indicated by the root. So in this case, Rahman means the one who is filled with mercy. And this can fit the meaning definitely. The second meaning is, or the second semantic indication, to be overcome by the feature indicated by the root. So in this case, in the case of Rahman, it means to be overcome by mercy. So again, if we're talking about the context and the context of the Quran in this specific case, where this verse is from, it can be, yes, it can, this meaning can work as well, that God is overcome by mercy, because in another an hadith, God is described as saying, or he's said to have he is described as saying, my mercy has overcome my anger. So to be overcome by mercy, this is still applicable for this word. Third feature is to have, third semantic indication is to have this feature in great or unlimited quantity. Again, this will work in the word Rahman. So, and quantity and quality are not the same. I'm sure you all know that. So to have mercy in great quantity, it means to have great mercy in like quantity wise. Okay, and to have it in quality, it means that the quality of the mercy is not unlike the mercy. So when we're talking in this same context, when we're talking about the mercy of God, it's great in quantity. More it means than the mercy of all of his creatures combined. Actually, in hadith, it's described as 99 times the mercy of all of his creation, or all of his creatures combined. And in quality, it means that the quality of the mercy is unlike any other mercy again. So it's they're not the same. So if you'd like then to be to indicate the semantic indication according to each one. So first, to be filled with mercy. Second, to be overcome by mercy, for the meanings of Rahman, to be filled with mercy, to be overcome by mercy, to have great or unlimited, in this case, unlimited mercy in quantity, and finally to have unlimited mercy in quality. So if you like then to translate this one word will be translated as the merciful, filled with mercy, overcome by it, whose mercy is unlimited or great in quantity and quality. So that's how you can translate فعلا. So now you can have an idea. Why do I call Arabic a 3D language? Because these four simple words right here in Arabic, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, that you can read in like 3 seconds, these four words of Arabic, they cannot be translated definitely into four words in English. They actually would be translated more to, if you like to preserve all of the meanings, they will be translated into four lines of English, not four words of English. So if you like to translate it accurately, preserving all of the semantic indications, semantic, it means has to do with the meaning, it will be in or with the name of God, the merciful, with let me remind you again, the merciful, filled with mercy, overcome by it, whose mercy is unlimited or great in quantity and quality. So it will be in the name of God, the merciful, whose mercy is in the name of God, the merciful, who's filled with mercy, overcome by it, whose mercy is unlimited in quantity and quality. And then Ar-Rahim, the merciful with the unlimited mercy. That's the one, or with the everlasting mercy. Okay, so again, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, they do not have the, you can see now that they do not have the same indication. So Ar-Rahman is the merciful, but it indicates the merciful, it's all about the being filled with mercy and overcome by it, and the greatness of the mercy in quality and quantity. Ar-Rahim, on the other hand, it adds another thing which was not included by Ar-Rahman. It's that this mercy, it's not just unlimited in quantity and quality, it's also unlimited in time. So basically that this mercy is never ending, it's everlasting. So that's the Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So you can see again how four words of Arabic cannot be translated into four words in English, because they will, you can, but you will not be able to preserve all of the meaning right there. So that's why I always say that Arabic is a 3D language, because it doesn't have just one layer of meaning. Like, don't forget the examples of these two. So if I ask you, for example, if I ask you in any quiz that Arabic is a 3D language, elaborate, you can use these two examples right here, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, which cannot be translated into one word each in English. Okay, cultural topics for discussion right here. So let me talk first about Arabic dictionaries. This is right here an example of an Arabic dictionary. It's called Lisanul Arab, okay, or the tongue, i.e. the language of the Arabs. This is a multi-volume dictionary, and you'll find that this is an example of classical dictionary. So, and that's how like Arabic dictionaries classically were, because of the fact that of like how rich this language is, by the fact that it can derive from the root many words, more words than you can imagine. As I already told you, we have currently like 15,000 roots in use. From each root, you will derive hundreds of words. And any Arabic dictionary is not ordered according to the word itself like English dictionaries, because this won't work. It's ordered according to the root, because you will have the root, and all words sharing the same root will share a common meaning. And then you will have examples, because you cannot get possibly in any Arabic dictionary all of the words sharing this root. It will be like unimaginable if you'd like to gather all of them in the dictionary. So definitely that's why Arabic dictionaries will be usually very, very long multi-volume dictionaries, at least when we're talking about the classical Arabic dictionaries. Modern ones are way shorter. Let me ask you, if I translate a book from Arabic to English, will the English translation be shorter than the Arabic origin or longer? You can pause, try to ask. Okay, if you asked shorter, that's not correct. Definitely, the English translation will be way longer than the Arabic origin. Why is that? Because of, first of all, the 3D language of Arabic, but also because of something called word reduction in Arabic. So word reduction in Arabic, like if you say, for instance, ashkuruka. Ashkuruka here, this is a full sentence by itself. It has a subject, which is I, indicated by the conjugation with the hamza at the beginning. It has a verb, and it has an object, which is the kaf with the fatha, which indicates you in the masculine singular. So ashkuruka by itself, it means I thank you, and it's a full sentence. Also in Arabic, you have, when it comes to verbs, you can have verbs indicating different intensities. For example, like if you like to say in English, the wind blew. In English, you'll need an adverb in order to indicate the intensity, like the wind blew gently, for instance, or anything that will indicate the intensity. In Arabic, you won't do that. In Arabic, you won't need a word for to indicate intensity, an adverb to indicate intensity. You will just use different verbs. Each one of these verbs will indicate different intensity. So nasamat is from the most gentle to the most harsh. So nasamat will be the most gentle, habbat for a strong wind, asafat for like a super strong wind, and qasafat if it's like a tornado, kind of like a tornado or something like that. Okay, another example that you can find right here is another word, for instance, أنلزمكموها. So this is again a word from the Quran. This word, if you'd like to translate it to English, you can translate it in this sense: shall we force you to accept it? Why is that? The hamza at the beginning, it's a yes or no question word. It's the equivalent of hal. The noon, that's the conjugation with we in the present tense. And then this lam, lazama, or it's alzama if it was in the past tense with huwa. That means to force someone to accept something. And then kum is you, masculine plural. And then the wow is for because we cannot have, that's for just the syllable structure issue. And then the ha at the end is it. So that's the pronoun referring to her or it in this case. So أنلزمكموها, that's the yes or no question word. We, and then forced to accept. Kum, you, masculine plural. And then ha, it. So shall we force you to accept it? So that's about word reduction. In Arabic, you can like, and the Arabs, by the way, consider the person to be more eloquent, his speech to be more eloquent, the more he or she can use the least amount of words in order to deliver the most amount of meanings. So like how you can deliver a lot in very few words. So back to our topics of discussion. So definitely, especially for classical books, if you like to translate a classical Arabic book into English, definitely the translation will be way longer than the Arabic original. That will be the case, for example, if you see Quranic translations, because, and it will depend again on how you will be able to, and even if you try to make it much longer, still you won't be able to preserve all of the semantic indications. Like if you recall this example here, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, no translation that I know of did this translation and still maintained the whole thing. Like in the name of God, the merciful, who's filled with mercy, overcome by it, whose mercy is unlimited in quantity and quality, the one with the merciful with the everlasting mercy. No one you, and because this will be like definitely not the way you can translate it. So regardless of how long you'll find a Quranic translation, for instance, it will, at the end of the day, it will not maintain all of the meanings of the original text. Islam and poetry. How did Islam in the derivation system in the Arabic language and poetry first? So let me ask you, based on what you just learned in this file right here, do you think Arabic will be a good tool for poetry, a bad tool for poetry? What a terrible tool for poetry? What? Okay, you can pause and try to answer. The best answer that I got actually from one of my students when I asked this question, it is that he said it will be actually the perfect tool for poetry, and this is the case indeed. And so let me tell you, the peak, the golden age of Arabic poetry was in the pre-Islamic era. So how did Islam influence poetry? Definitely Islam had a negative influence of poetry. I'll tell you why in a second. But let me tell you that the peak of Arabic poetry, which is like the golden age of Arabic poetry, was in the pre-Islamic era. And then there was another peak in the second Abbasid era, but still not as high as the first peak. So, for instance, in pre-Islamic Arabia, Arabs, first of all, they loved their language, and they loved poetry, and they were doing more competitions in poetry than in anything else. And it was normal to like find like pieces of poetry that are kind of like uncomparable basically to today's poetry, to today's Arabic poetry, and definitely to any to poetry in many other languages. So for instance, it's very in Arabic poetry. Let me give you an example of a piece of poetry of someone called Al-Mutanabbi. Al-Mutanabbi is my favorite as a poet, not as a person. So this person was actually a genius poet. His poetry was running on his tongue as if, without any problem. So let me give you an example of his poetry. But first, let me give you an idea about the person himself. This person himself, most of what he was doing in his life was to go to the kings and say a good piece of poetry about them so that they give him money. And he was the best of his time in poetry, and actually one of the best of all times, actually, if not the best of all times. So he would go to the kings and then tell them good things about them in a very eloquent, very nice piece of poetry, and he'll get money. If he doesn't get money from them, or if the money does not like satisfy his ego, then he would write a piece of poetry about the same king, but the opposite. He would in this case be saying everything bad about this king, or this person that he was saying everything good about him before. Now everything will turn into bad things. So he did this, for instance, with Kafur al-Ikhshidi, who was the ruler of Egypt at that time, and he wrote a magnificent piece of poetry, like praising Kafur al-Ikhshidi and saying everything good about him. And it's filled with lies, definitely, and things that no one like descriptions that no one can reach. And then when he didn't give him any money because he thought he was a hypocrite. So he didn't give him any money. So he wrote a more beautiful piece of poetry against Kafur al-Ikhshidi, saying everything bad about him, okay, whether true or not. Anyway, so this was the guy. The guy, again, Al-Mutanabbi, our poet here, was a very, just to give you an idea about it, because it has to do with this piece of poetry. First of all, he wasn't a warrior. He never fought a battle. He never entered into any war, but he was always describing himself as, the knight of all knights. He also wasn't very attractive to women. However, he was describing himself as Casanova, the night guy, and he was very fat, and he was describing himself as the fittest person ever. So, in this piece of poetry, he's saying, I'll read it first, I'll read parts of it. وَحَرَّ قَلْبَاهُ مِمَّنْ قَلْبُهُ شَبِمُ وَمَنْ بِجِسْمِي وَحَالِي عِنْدَهُ سَقَمُ ما لي أكتم حبا قد برى جسدي وتدعي حب سيف الدولة الأمم إن كان يجمعنا حب لغرته فليت أنا بقدر الحب نقتسم قد زرته وسيوف الهند مغمدة وقد نظرت إليه والسيوف دم فكان أحسن خلق الله كلهم وكان أحسن ما في الأحسن الشيم يا أعدل الناس إلا في معاملتي فيك الخصام وأنت الخصم والحكم أعيذها نظرات منك صادقة أن تحسب الشحم في من شحمه ورم أنا الذي نظر الأعمى إلى أدبي وأسمعت كلماتي من به صمم الخيل والليل والبيداء تعرفني والسيف والرمح والقرطاس والقلم. The first thing you may have noticed is that first of all of the endings are rhyming together. So it will be a followed by mu. So amu at the end of every single one of every. It will be at the end of every single line. Saqamu, umamu, sometimes imu, but anyway, the mu will always be there. Mu, mu, mu. Okay, she, etc. Second, every half line will have exactly the same number of syllables as the other half and as every half in the whole thing. So this half right here will have exactly the same number of syllables as this half, exactly the same number of syllables as this half, as this half, as this is. So every one will have exactly the same number. So every half line will have exactly the same number of syllables as every other half in the entire piece of poetry. So here in this one, he's saying, وَحَرَّ قَلْبَهُ مِمَّنْ قَلْبُهُ شَمِمٌ. So he's just saying, oh, my heart is so hot for you, for the king, that he's praising in this piece of poetry. And he's, on the other hand, blaming the king that his heart is shabimu, that his heart is cold towards Al-Mutanabbi. For sure, the king knew that Al-Mutanabbi didn't love him or anything, but he was just trying to get money. And he was showing him that he didn't, he's not so idiot, as to believe everything that he was saying. And the king as well just so he's telling here the king that he is seeing his body, that he thinks that his body is so slim, the body of Al-Mutanabbi, the poet, is so slim because he's sick. Actually, his body wasn't slim at all, and that's why when he heard this, so he looked at him like in a way, come on, like how are you talking about yourself as slim and sick and things like that? So he replied to him here in this line saying, أعيذها نظرات منك صادقة أن تحسب الشحم في من شحمه ورم. I seek refuge from your sharp looks to think that this is fat, while in fact it's not fat, it's waram. Waram means swelling. So he's saying here that his body is actually not fat, his body is swelling, and that's why it looks as if he's fat. And his body is swelling, why? Because of his love for the king, so that's a double spear of hypocrisy. So his body is actually not fat, he doesn't have any fat in his body, this is swelling. And why is he swelling? Because of his love for the king. And then he is saying, مالي أكتم حبا قد برى جسدي. Why am I hiding a love that has sharpened my body, it has made it so slim, while everyone else is claiming the love of Saif al-Dawla, that's the name of the king. And then his like shamelessly telling him, إن كان يجمعنا حب لغرتي, if we all share this love for him or for his face, فليت أن بقدر الحب نقتسم. I wish that we were getting according to our love. We're getting money and gifts according to our love for him. And then he describes him as the best and most beautiful of all creatures. And here he is telling him, يا أعدل الناس, oh the most fair of all people, إلا في معاملتي, except in treating me. فيك الخصام, in you is the case. وأنت الخصم, and you are the opponent. والحكم, and you are the judge. So he's telling him, you are like the most fair of everyone except in treating me. In you is my case, and you are my opponent, and you are the judge. And then he is telling him, as I said, that he's seeking refuge from his sharp looks, that to think that his body is, or that he has fat in his body, while this fat is actually not fat, it's swelling because of his love for him. And then he mentions the two pieces of praising, the two lines of praising oneself that are the most beautiful and at the same time the most lying lines that anyone said about himself, praising himself. No one has ever said anything that was more lying and at the same time more beautiful about himself than these two lines here. This line here and this line right here. And it's not it's actually very normal. Arabs always said أعذب الشعر أكذبه. The most sweet of poetry is the one with the most lies in it. So he says, أنا الذي نظر الأعمى إلى أدبي. I am the one who the blind looked to my literature. وأسمعت كلماتي من به الصمم. And my words made the deaf hear. And so I am the one who the blind looked to my literature, and and my words made the deaf hear. And then this is the lying part here. So this is the exaggeration part, the first line, and this is the complete lying part. الخيل والليل والبيداء تعرفني والسيف والرمح والقرطاس والقلم. الخيل, it means the horses, they know me. Okay, so the horses, it means the horses know him, i.e., it means that he's a knight, he's someone who's like all the time in battles and in wars, and he never ever went to a single battle. He never held a sword. He never had anything to do with cavalry or with knighthood or anything. وَاللَّيْلُ, he's talking about the night. The night knows him. He means that he is a womanizer. He, again, wasn't very appealing for women actually. وَالْبَيْدَاءُ, he means the desert. And he says here, the horses, the night, and the desert, they all know me. So again, the horses never knew him. Okay, he never was a knight. The night doesn't know him either, and the desert, he means by the desert knows me, he means that he always goes hunting and things like that. Again, he never went hunting. والسيف, and the sword. Again, he's talking about how brave he is in battles, and again, he has never been to a single battle. والسيف والرمح, and the spear. والقرطاس, the paper. والقلم, and the pen. So he's saying that the sword, the spear, the paper, and the pen, they all know me. Actually, only the last two knew him, the qirtas and the qalam, the paper and pen. That's the only thing that knew him. Other than that, nothing was true in this line. So back to our questions. So why did Islam negatively influence poetry? Because basically the topics of poetry before Islam were all about the following. Were all about love, and describing the female body, wine, the tribal pride, and the personal pride, the wealth and power. So basically it was all about things that Islam wasn't very much in favor of. It was basically about romantic love. So Islam wanted, to replace that with another form of love, which is the love for God and the love for each other, not the love between a man and a woman. Wine, as you know, was made impermissible in Islam, and before Islam, it was Arabs. They were very much consumers of wine. Tribal pride, again, this was something that Islam didn't approve. Its pride should be only in one's, according to Islam, in one's relation with God, and in one's obedience to God. Wealth and power, again, these have nothing to, in Islam, they weigh nothing. It's all about one's it's all about one's taqwa, which is kind of observing God. And describing the female body, definitely this was something against the teachings of Islam as well. So that's why that's one of the reasons why poetry after Islam never maintained the beauty and the level that it was at, because mainly Islam came with another concept of the entire world, basically another way of living, another way of for everything. So all of these were no longer seen as things that one should be mentioning or should be proud of. Also, another thing is that also with the Quran was seen as a masterpiece of Arabic. That's the other point, is that the Quran was seen as something like so high in language that no one can do something like that. So that's why, again, this was another thing that influenced poetry, because it was the bar was set so high, that no one could think that they could come with a language that's so so beautiful in this way, and so strong as the language of the Quran. Finally, Islam and Arabic language. Islam, did it positively or negatively influence Arabic? Uh, on the short term, it negatively influenced Arabic. On the long term, Arabic wouldn't have survived without being connected to Islam. So on the short term, definitely when non-Arabs started becoming Muslims, this was seen by Arab linguists at the time as a threat to Arabic, especially that many of their words became mixed with Arabic. Their usage of Arabic had lots of errors. So on the short term, linguists saw this as a threat to Arabic. On the long term, Arabic for sure would have been dead long ago if it hasn't been preserved by Islam. So it's as if like Islam has preserved the Arabic language more than the opposite, more than the Arabic language has preserved the teachings of Islam. Finally, and it's until today, you'll find that the Quran, again, it's basically studied in Arabic. Any other the Quran, when it's translated into any other language, it's not seen as the Quran or close. It's seen as just a translation of the Quran that's not preserving the entire meanings of the Quran, as I mentioned earlier. Finally, language change in Arabic after Islam. Language change usually goes as follows. So, for instance, if you look at the history of English, if you compare, for instance, Old English to Middle English to Modern English, you'll find that Modern English is completely different from Old English, because all the time new vocabulary comes in and old vocab is gotten rid of. So at the end of the day, you'll find that almost you're dealing as if you're dealing with two different languages when you compare the same language 1,000 years ago from now. This hasn't been the case with Arabic, because so Arabic has been increasing its vocab, but on the other hand, it has been preserving the old vocab because of its association with the Islamic rituals and the Islamic texts. So that's why Arabic has been growing the vocab that's it's using, while on the other hand not getting rid of the old vocab. So it's kind of accumulative. The vocab has been accumulating. So that's with regards to Arabic, the language change in Arabic after Islam. Okay, so I'll stop here. Just a quick overview of what we went over in this file, which is again the most important file, and it's a very rich file. And it will change when you go over this file and know the logic of the language and the logic of derivation and the logic of word formation. It will influence your entire career in learning Arabic, and it will help you better understand vocab, better retain vocab, better appreciate the logic of the language. So everything will change after you go over this file right here. So learning Arabic will, before and after this file for you will not be the same. So again, the root and pattern. The root is like the liquid. The pattern is like the external shape. The root is a three-letter basic building block of any Arabic word. It gives the word its core meaning. So all words sharing the root, for instance, kaf, ta, ba, will have to do with writing. The pattern is what gives the word its secondary layers of meaning. For example, the pattern fa'il indicates the doer of the action. The pattern maf'ul indicates the object of the action. The pattern maf'al indicates the place or time of the action. Here we had some drills to guess the root out of if you have the pattern, or like this one, to weigh the words morphologically to get the pattern if you have the root. Why is Arabic a 3D language? Think of this verse right here, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, which is usually translated as in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, or in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Anyway, or in the name of God, the owner of mercy, the giver of mercy. You'll find several translations in Quranic translations. However, none of them preserves all of the meanings. And if you like to go over the entire meaning, you will need to go to the root. Both are ra, ha, mim, which has to do with mercy. The first one is the pattern fa'lan. The second one is the pattern fa'il. So the second one can be translated, in order to maintain all of the meanings, as the merciful with the everlasting mercy. The first one will be the merciful filled with mercy, overcome by it, whose mercy is unlimited or unlimited in quantity and quality. Cultural topics for discussion went over poetry, Arabic dictionaries, and many other things, the relation between Islam and Arabic. And finally, went over word reduction in Arabic, and we went over Arabic poetry and our guy Al-Mutanabbi, probably one of the best poets of all time, and one of the most lying and the most hypocrites as well of all time. Okay, so that will be it. And I hope you'll all benefit from this file right here. And if you have any questions, as usual, as you know, my office hours are 3 to 6 Tuesdays and Wednesdays. However, if you can do it on these days or these hours, you can still contact me and schedule an appointment, and we can meet on Zoom anytime. And best of luck, everyone. See you all. Ma salam.